Buona sera, everyone. Welcome to Calcio Culture. This is your host, Vost, alongside my co-host today, Motts. We rounded up match week number 4 earlier today, and I can confirm that the never-ending story is continuing to unfold before our very eyes. We have teams overperforming, underperforming, shock results, and all-around headlines everywhere. Motts, it's just craziness every week at this point.
Gotta love it. Every weekend we come in and just the games get better and better. It's always going to continue. We were dead wrong in a lot of our predictions. I think we didn't call one of the scores correct, but we did call some of the results correct, which is at least good that we knew that teams were going to win and which teams were going to win. But great weekend of Calcio, and we have weekday games this week, which is going to be awesome. We'll cover that later on, but great weekend, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. I think that if you had told everybody like a couple weeks in, this is what the table's going to look like, there's definitely some surprises there. And we're obviously going to get
Number
into that.
one.
Number one, probably the biggest surprise. And we're definitely going to get into that. But today we're going to be reviewing match week number 4 and match week number 1. We're going to be previewing of the Champions League, which is kicking off tomorrow afternoon. We're super excited about it. But before that, let's get after it. Quick shouts, Motts. What do you got here?
Quick shouts. First quick shout, Paisanos, you'll notice that we are a duo today. We don't have the trifecta. Logs is not here. However, it was his birthday on Sunday. Happy birthday, Logs. He turned the big 27. I know he had a men's league game as well on his birthday. I don't know how he did, but happy birthday, Logs. We will hold it down for you. Now let's get on to the private jet and talk about these quick shots. I don't even know where this game was played, so I don't know where we're going on the private jet, but Tom Brady's Birmingham City went up against Ryan Reynolds' Wrexham, and Tom Brady came out victorious, winning that game 3-1. Thought that was a cool shout. We got 2 American owners of teams going head to head. Obviously, I don't know if anyone watches the Wrexham documentary on FX, but it's a good watch. But they got work today, 3-1.
They did get work. Tom Brady knows what he's doing. Serial winner. Now he's been bringing it over to football. Interesting one. It is nice to see more like Americans. And then I haven't watched the Wrexham one, but I do really like those like behind the scenes ones. There was the one about Juve a couple years ago that I absolutely loved. And I think it was the season
Arsenal
Pirlo,
one, yeah.
when Pirlo was the coach too. That one was really good.
Yeah, that one was good. The only problem with that one was it was all in Italian, so it was like tough to watch. But yeah, those are all good. The Premier League does a great one. It's called All or Nothing. The Arsenal had it the last 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I last watched, and Arteta was like drawing potatoes on the board and using like the potatoes.
Insanely good television. They just stick with Arsenal while he's there. But in other news, if we get back on the jet, head over to France. We can't escape him much. Your boy is everywhere. He's in the headlines. He was almost in Milan. He left Turin. He was over in Saudi Arabia at one point. He popped up in Manchester briefly, but ultimately he has touchdown.
Let's get something straight before we even mention this guy's name. He's not my boy. I unfortunately had to sit through 5 years of him running up and down and contributing nothing to the game. The man that we're talking about is Allegri's son, Adrien Rabiot. He ended up signing to Marseille, and the reason why he was so against re-signing with Juve is because he wanted to be with a team that plays in the Champions League year in and year out, when Juventus always do that. They missed it 1 year because they got a point deduction, and he signed with a team not even in the Champions League. He went to a worse league, a worse team. I don't know what the fee is or how much he's getting paid yearly. I know that was very important to him and probably more his mother. So I don't know what those numbers are, but I can tell you, and I think everybody would agree, this is a complete downgrade for Rabiot, and it should show both him and his mom, you're not that fucking good, and you can't ask for a shit ton of money, or good teams won't pay for your services because you're not that good. Go fuck yourself.
I don't have anything more to add. Go fuck yourself. I think sums it up. I'm fine with that. I'm fine leaving this Rabiot stuff in the dust where it belongs. I'm good.
One more thing. He one more thing. He's just waiting to see if Allegri can go get a job somewhere else, and then Allegri's going to go sign him and give him all the money he wants because he is his son.
Yeah. I don't even know why. Like, he's not even an Allegri player, like in terms of what Allegri would want, I feel like. I don't really understand it at all. But yeah,
Doesn't get injured,
I'm
and
down with Rabiot. I'm
yeah.
down with Rabiot. Getting back on the jet, going back to England, we talked about this guy a whole bunch last week during the international break. I just want to give him a shout out. Sandro Tonali subbed on at halftime for Newcastle. They were down to Wolves. When he came on the field, he really made some things happen. They ended up winning that game, coming back. Tonali was all over the place. This is a guy now that's coming into his own, and he's going to get on the global stage more and more now. As Serie A fans, we were aware of him. As Azzurri fans, we were aware of him. We knew how good he was, but I don't think the rest of the world knew yet. He missed the last Premier League season, obviously, because of Fajoli with Rat and all that with the betting, but he's back. He just made a big statement, I think, in the international break with how well he played. And now he's continuing that onto the club level, which is what he needs to do and what this Italy team needs to see from him. And I think what Italian fans want to see. And this is what we hope we get out of Calafiori. Obviously, got hurt in the international break, but this is what we expect also him to do in his next step.
Yeah, hopefully. I have a question here. Tonali was brought on at halftime this game. I think the same thing 2 games ago, or the last game before the international break with Newcastle. What is it with like teams and managers like easing guys into like the system? Like you pay so much money for these players and then you ease them in. Juventus is doing that with Douglas Luiz. Arsenal's barely played Calafiori before he got injured. I don't get the whole let me ease them in. Just you buy them, fucking play them because you're paying that much money because you know that they're good and they're going to affect the game. Play them from the start.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
Tonali knows
Tonali
the
did great.
system. He's just been sitting around studying it for a year. Like, he's been there. I don't know why he's not already a regular starter, especially with the other guys around him. But this is not a Newcastle United podcast, so we'll move it on to a guy that's technically not a Serie A. No, technically is, although not playing in Serie A. Victor Osimhen netted his first goal for Galatasaray this past weekend. I got to remember to tune in. I kind of forgot that he was over there, and I really want to watch these Galatasaray games because I just like forget. I haven't seen him in so long that like I forget how good he was. Like when he was playing on a team that was like a tie level team, not Napoli last year, but now like he's kind of playing on the best team in Turkey, if not the best, like top 3, and he's gonna be able to just absolutely run things over there, I think.
Yeah, I'm not going to be tuning into Osimhen. I don't want to watch the Turkish league. Although I will say, Balotelli came out and said people need to respect the Turkish league more than they do. It's a competitive league. Yada yada yada. I'm like Osimhen. I wish him the best, but now that he's not in the Serie A, and especially that he's in the Turkish league, I won't be tuning in. Wish him the best of luck, though.
Do you think there's no chance he comes back to Italy at all? Right?
No, I do not.
Yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate, but
He wants to go to the Prem.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of who, and the fees going down, so it's gonna happen in the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But to get us back to Italy here, we had some kind of off the pitch, somewhat on the pitch news. Atalanta Stadium finally finished, and it's gorgeous. It's like a new. They kind of did a good job of making the old school meet the new school without having to just destroy everything, and they built it back up. And it's a beautiful stadium. And I hope this is a model that the rest of Italy uses to build up, because it's not, we have to build the Bernabeu. You can do other kinds of upgrades. So I hope that this is kind of what Lecce does. They take that direction. I think a lot of teams should follow this.
Agreed. Just a little bit background on the updates of the stadium. It took 1,959 days. That is classic Italy timeline on just getting things done, just dragging their feet. I mean, 1,959 days is an insane amount of time to finish upgrading a stadium. Cost them $100 million, and now it can hold 23,600 or 500. I don't know how much it could hold before, but I will say I was watching the Atalanta Fiorentina game, obviously in Bergamo this past weekend. It looked gorgeous. Their wall behind the home net looks like the Dortmund wall going up. It looks sick. It looks like way more than 23,000 people are in that stadium. And I know Atalanta were in a similar situation prior to the renovations where you couldn't have any fans in a specific section. Great that that's no longer there, because it's just such a better looked game when the stadium is full rather than you have one whole section of the stadium that cannot hold fans. So good job by Atalanta. It's a beautiful stadium. Look it up if you haven't. Great stadium. Good job, Atalanta. Love to
Yeah, and
see it.
tune into the next home game because it makes such a big difference. Watching Atalanta games in Bergamo it was kind of shitty because it was like super quiet and you can't see anybody, and half the stadium was empty like this all time. So it was really cool to see that this weekend. What I will say, $100 million and only 23,000 seats. I don't love that return on investment.
Yeah, not the best. But at least the one positive is that they are one of the few stadiums in the Serie A that do not have the track around the field, so you do feel right on the pitch, which is great. But yeah, 23,000 for an outdoor stadium is not a lot, and 100 mil is a lot. But Atalanta do good business usually. They did a good job. The stadium looks great. I think that this is a win, all things considered,
Yeah,
for them.
definitely win. But keeping it on stadiums with tracks around them, one of the most entertaining owners in the league, Motts' Gumad team. He's got some strong opinions about this guy. What's going on here, Motts?
Antonio De Laurentiis, 20th anniversary of president of Napoli, happened over the weekend. This guy is a pain in the dick. He is hard to negotiate with. He hates Juventus. He is a classic Italian owner that overestimates the worth of his players, so he can't sell them. Obviously, we saw it this summer with Osimhen, seen it before with Koulibaly and Insigne, so on and so forth. But with all that said, he is actually a very solid owner of Napoli and has made them or have has made them be competitive year in and year out. Besides that, last year when he kind of wanted to show Spalletti he had a bigger dick than him, and it didn't end up working out. But take that away, he usually makes very good decisions for Napoli, and year in and year out, they're in the Champions League. They're competing for the Scudetto. He just won a Scudetto for Napoli 2 years ago. So overall, a pain in the ass, but a good owner, I would say.
Yeah, it's hard to knock him more than that, right? He's a pain to deal with. They could be better if he did a couple things differently. Like if he would just swallow some of his pride, but that's never going to happen. He is who he is, and he makes great news at the end of the day, at the least. And Napoli are always entertaining under him. But that is it for our quick shouts. But before we get into the games here, guys, we got to do a Culpi check-in. I'm gonna let Mons kick it off because I am the only one that hit a leg, and I'm really basking in that right now. It's the first time it's happened to
Yeah.
me, so I'll let Mons speak to this to start.
I'm on a cold streak. I believe that this makes me 1-4. I obviously had Juve -1.5. You said it. Empoli's been tough to break down. It was the same story there. Juve also were struggling on the attack. Lowe's also 1-4. I believe no, I'm on a 2 or 3 game losing streak, and Lowe's is on a 2 game losing streak. He had Torino moneyline, didn't hit. Paisan League, you guys also didn't hit with Leao, anytime scorer. That was commented by my friend, one of my fraternity brothers, Chris Park, who is getting into Calcio. Shout out Park. He texted me a couple weeks ago and was like, "How can I watch the Serie A?" I told him he's been watching it. He's been riding the Culpi. So shout out Park, even though your bet didn't hit. It was great comment. Keep commenting, keep watching. We love that you're watching it. Tough week for the Culpi besides your leg. You had it right. I'll let you talk about your leg. You're now leading.
I am leading. I think I'm 2-2 now. And what I
Yeah.
will say is this is a pick for me that I think I'm just gonna revert back to, and I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna ride Atalanta money line because it's always good value. I did this with Napoli when they won the league. I would be down going into Monday afternoon, down $200. Oh, what do we do? We'll just throw 200 on Napoli, -1.5, cover it. We're good. I think Atalanta is going to be that for me this year. I feel good. I thought about it all weekend after they won.
Listen, I mean, Atalanta, you know what you're gonna get. They're gonna score goals, but they're also gonna concede. So you just gotta
That's
obviously
where the
hope that they
value
put
is.
more.
That's
Yeah.
where the value is. But we'll give you guys a new Culpi on Wednesday. Hopefully, we can get like a 50% Culpi here soon enough.
Yeah, we gotta
We'll
hit
hit
one
one. We'll hit
soon.
one. Yeah, we'll hit one.
Yeah.
We'll definitely hit one. Go ahead, Max.
I was just gonna say once we do, like, we'll be in the green because our Culpis are usually plus 870. So if you've been throwing 100 on each one, you're down $400 right now. So all we need to do is hit one, and then you'd be up again. So
And then
stay
it's
with
like a
us.
spiral. Once you hit one Culpi, we'll continue
Correct.
to hit
Then
them.
you get
We'll
hot.
think, yeah,
Also, if you've been listening to us, you take the legs separate, so you're not actually down the full 100 or the full 400 because you would be up on a couple different legs that we've hit individually.
especially my legs. But with that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get into the match reviews and previews. And we're back from the break, guys, to get into the Brajal, the meat. Shout out Anthony's Runway 84 in Fort Lauderdale. They got one of the best Brajals in the country. If you're ever in the area, check it out. But we did wrap up match week number 4 today. And I would say the best game of the weekend actually happened today in my mind. And that was Udinese going on a visit to Parma, two teams we've been very hot on. And we did want to talk about this game first, Monts, for one reason alone. And the number one is the theme of that.
Well, even I would say also because we have a surprising team like you kind of foreshadowed in the beginning of the episode here at number one, and that is Udinese is holding the number one spot in the Serie A, which I can probably guarantee that none of us saw coming, even the paisanos that listen. I don't think Udinese fans saw this coming 4 matches in being number one. So that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to talk about this because they are current leaders.
Yeah, current laners and looking like they're going to be able to keep it up. They've shown this out, and the way that they play, and we've been very hot on Parma. We've loved everything they're doing. This was a game where we saw kind of where Parma's weakness maybe is. When you're up 2-0, they're not really built to own that and kind of see a game out. And on the other side of things, Udinese down 2-0, have the wherewithal, have the confidence, and have the style of play to then bring the game to you and net 3 goals and see it out that way. That being said, I think Parma could figure this out and kind of rejig things. I don't think they expected to be in a situation where they're up 2-0 in games very often and needing to see a game out. With how good they've started this year, I would expect that in training they're looking to add a couple more pieces because again, we've seen it time like each game this season. They do a couple things very well, and nobody has really been able to stop that. The same thing happened against Udinese. It's about putting the rest of the team together, right? Like figuring out, okay, now we're good enough. How do we maintain this? How do we not just sit in a shell? And ultimately, what happened was Udinese ended up just possessing the ball, which is what they want to do, and created enough opportunities to get it done.
Yeah, it was a tale of two halves today. Parma dominated Udinese in the first half. They made Udinese look like almost a Serie B team. They were passing it all around them. I know Udinese did hit the crossbar and the post in the first half, but in terms of like possessing the ball and just better dangerous opportunities, it was all Parma in the first half. Then the second half came around and Udinese showed Parma why they've been in the Serie A for 10, 15 straight years and just dominated this game. Also, Parma goes to your point of them struggling seeing out a game. This is now their second game in a row where they've gotten a red card and all things have fallen apart getting that red card. They were beating Napoli, they were beating Udinese, they get a red card and then they lose both games. Or did they tie Napoli?
Yeah, they ended up no, they lost to Napoli, right? That was the
Yeah.
one they
So
lost.
they blew both games, which is just you got to be able to. You're a newly promoted team. You're being competitive, which is great, but you got to be able to see these games out if you want to finish high in the table and even stay in the league. Because you got 0 points on a game that you were leading an entire first half.
Definitely. We're going to continue to talk about them just because of how entertaining they've been too. It's not just like with Empoli. Empoli is a good example of they're doing well, but it's not like all that enjoyable to watch. Parma is explosive in all the right ways, but also have a good solid base. And we're just seeing some of their players continue to develop and get better. Bernabe is the guy that you highlighted last week, Mox. I had highlighted Koulibaly a couple weeks ago. He got moved to left back, which I didn't even know that they would consider doing that. So there's a lot of interesting things there. On the Udinese side of things, how long can they keep this up?
I'd like to see who they're playing in the next few games. I know that they haven't had the toughest schedule to start the league, right? We talked about that last episode. But I mean, they've looked good. They have a +3 goal differential. they continue to win their games at home. I also think that it's good that they're off to a good start because maybe if they
It
can't keep up
matters.
this form, it does matter. Getting these points quickly, you can afford as a team like Udinese who might end up like going in a little run in the middle of the season. They might be able to afford it now because they've done so well in these first 4 games.
Yeah, and I think next week is probably the best test. Well, it is going to be the hardest test, and that's in Roma. And I think that's a good time for us to kind of transition out of this because from a Parma perspective and an Udinese perspective, I don't think anything was new. I think it's more so this is kind of what Parma's issues are, and we've identified that. We've identified what Udinese is doing well. Can they continue this against a higher caliber team, which they haven't run into yet? And that's going to be Roma in theory, which is why we're really highlighting this game. For Roma, it's another draw, 1-1. They visited Genoa, who's been a solid team. But Roma, as we talked about time and time again here, I'm sure all the Roma fans are very disappointed with how this season has started, is they can't figure out how to score. That's what's going on. They got one, but one isn't enough. And we talked about it a little bit last week. When is De Rossi on the hot seat? And with this start to the season now, I think we're at the point where he has to be. 3 draws, 1 loss, -1 goal differential isn't good enough for the Roma, period. Regardless of Roma 10 years ago, Roma now, this isn't good enough for either of those.
I would agree. I mean, this is a Roma team that finished 6th or 5th last year and also Europa semifinals in a heartbreaking fashion, losing to Leverkusen. And then they went out and spent 100 mil or even more. And then they signed veterans for their defense. So they've improved the team and they're not showing it at all. You got to, at least Dovbyk got on the score sheet. So that's good. Maybe you can keep that rolling, keep that momentum going. And then I know that De Winter scored Juventus product, by the way, Juventus Primavera product. He scored in the 96th minute, and I believe they only got 4 minutes of stoppage time. So kind of questionable there. But in terms of your question on De Rossi on the hot seat, I think he's got to be. I know I said a couple more games, and once again he changed it up again. He is not just rolling out the same 11 every single game and saying like we'll figure it out. He is trying things out. This game they kind of played like this 3-5-1-1 ball, kind of like a Allegri ball in terms of the formation. I don't love that formation, but it looked better. They weren't so far on the right. They actually were pretty heavy on the left-hand side this game. But like I don't love playing El Shaarawy in like a wing back position because he's a little too attacking.
And he's also
So
never
he's
played
still
off the right in his career. So like I think what they were trying to achieve is get more service into Dovbyk, I guess, because I think that's part of what the issue is. But for me, I would have just left Salamakers off the right then. Like that's what he's played. Like keep El Shaarawy off the
Mhm.
left. I don't really get that.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And so that's why I'm thinking they have Udinese next, who I mean, you would think that that's an easier opponent, but we just got finished saying they're number one. They're a tough beat. They're a tough team to go up against right now. And then you're gonna have the Europa League coming eventually, and that's gonna add more games mid-season or midweek. That's just gonna make it tougher on De Rossi. So he really has to figure it out quick, or I believe I can see the Roma fans calling for his head. And this is something that you did mention that you thought why you thought De Rossi should start on maybe like the assistant manager, wait for him. He did a great job as the interim, but he doesn't have that much experience in his first stint as a manager. I forgot what team it was on, but they weren't good at all. It wasn't until he got Roma that he kind of turned them around and made them on fire. So it'll be interesting to see, but Roma really need to figure it out as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I mean this Udinese game, I don't think that that's going to be the make or break game for him because of how good they have been. But coming out of that, they've got the Europa League, and then they've got Venezia, and then they got Inter. So I mean, none of those games are shoo-ins, and if you don't start showing,
Venezia's a shoe in.
yeah, but the difference with Venezia is that and we're going to get to Milan, but Milan beat the piss out of them because they've been scoring goals. Like Venezia, Roma hasn't been scoring goals.
You
Like you're not
still
worried about.
you need to beat Venezia.
No, they do, and that's the game that if even if he gets nothing out of the Europa League, I think it's okay. But if they don't get something out of Venezia, it's alarm bells for me. I'm not sure who's around to even hire right now, to be honest. But I would hope that they have a contingency plan. On the positive side of things is he's bringing new players through. Like we're continuing to see that. Manu Kone had his first full debut. He's a player that looks very good. Pizzili started. He looked good 2 weeks ago. And they haven't integrated the new center backs, which I don't think is really what's going to make them that much better. Because the defense, like we said, in Juve, they were good against this Genoa team. 1 goal, like that's fine. If you're going to concede 1 goal to Genoa, though, you need to go. You need to win. This is a game you need to win as Roma. Is really my issue.
Mm-hmm.
And De Rossi this season hasn't showed any of us that they're capable of going and winning games, and that's what breaks you into the top 6. Because all these other mid tier teams can draw these games, but that's not good enough for Roma. So you need to figure this out. I'll give him another 2 weeks, and then I'm hard.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, if he doesn't, he's got 3 games, and you mentioned it, Udinese, the Europa League, and then Venezia. If he doesn't get a win in either of those 3 games, that's 6 games or 12 games, I believe. 12 games where it's no, maybe 6, maybe 7. It's around there where it's no wins. Like that's awful for Roma, especially spending 100 mil, especially because most of these players did play with him last year, and they've only gotten deeper. So I do get it that they have brought a lot of people in, and those people are learning a new system, trying to implement Dopic in and work with him as kind of like the target man. So that they growing pains were expected. I just think that they were expected to not look as good on the pitch, but still somehow get the results, and the results aren't there right now. So it's emphasizing those growing pains for Roma, and it's gonna eventually get to the point where it's questioning, do we move on from De Rossi if he cannot turn these games into results and get 3 points?
Yeah, for sure. One other piece that is not working in his favor, but they have missed several very good opportunities that would have flipped some of these results. So and I'm
Yeah,
saying that if they do this, who's to say that they'd start hitting these in? Like, I don't know. Like they need Pellegrini, they need Dybala, they need Dopic to get going, period. Then Roma, not a ton of new stuff really. Change of formation, still blunt offense. Flip side of things, Genoa now drew Inter, beat Monza, lost to Verona, which I still like that Verona team. Drew Roma. That's a good start for this team, especially with some of the players they lost in the summer. They look like that this like grinding out games, low scoring games is going to be their bread and butter for the rest of the season, which is fine. Like, right, when you lose some of these key players, especially Retegui, right? Like with these mid-level teams, when you lose your big 9, those are guys that steal games for you that you're not even supposed to win. And that's very hard to replace.
Yeah, and we see how on fire Retegui is for Atalanta and what he's doing over there in Bergamo. I'll be the first to say it. I'm surprised of Genoa and the results that they've gotten. They've gotten some big results in terms of Roma and Inter, which I didn't see coming. I had this team borderline relegation, and so I am surprised with what they're doing. You got to tip your cap to them, see if they can continue doing it. But I thought that they were going to struggle to score goals, and they have struggled, but they haven't allowed that many goals in. And it does seem like when a goal is needed, they end up figuring out how to get that goal like they did against Roma. So good to see Genoa being a tough competition. And that's just one of the reasons why you love the Serie A, because a team like Genoa, who I thought was going to be bad, is a tough win. A team like Parma that just got promoted is a tough team to go play. Udinese, we thought was going to be middle of the table. They're number 1. You have no idea what's going to happen in this league because all the teams are so competitive.
Definitely. And to keep it rolling on to another team, Napoli took a little visit to the island of Sardinia to face Cagliari, who I have been very impressed by. Even in this game, I don't think the scoreline fully reflects how well Cagliari played for portions of the game. I think part of the issue was they went down 1-0, 18th minute, De Lorenzo scored. And then they looked like they were going to stay in the game. And then it went 2-0 in the second half and they just fully collapsed. From a Napoli perspective, I hate to say it, but you are right. I see
Obviously,
it all coming
obviously.
together now. And from like a formation standpoint and a lineup standpoint, not much has changed, but there's just so much more fluidity than I anticipated coming into the way that Conte wanted to play. And it's looking very good. It looks very dangerous. I think he is leaving the back three more exposed than he has in the past. But I think that's more of a function of how confident he is in those three guys and Buongiorno, Rachmani, and Di Lorenzo to just figure it out. Like if they're 3v3, he's okay with that.
And then Zombo's able to come back as well.
Yeah,
But I
Zombo
mean,
even Lobotka had a very good game. He covered a lot of ground.
and Ibaka that's his one weakness is he doesn't really cover that much ground, but he was getting up and down the pitch. But what I when I see what I see when I watch Napoli is you see them score a goal. Di Lorenzo scored his first goal, ran over to Conte to celebrate. Cavada scored a goal. Conte was hugging the crap out of his coaching staff. Like it means something to them. They're so passionate about a goal when they score and it results because Conte wants to turn this around. He knows how to do this, and he knows that in order to turn this team around, you need these guys to buy in and care and show the passion. And Conte's getting it out of those guys. And Romelu Lukaku, say what you want to. I don't know if we've ever seen for Lukaku specifically, a coach that he plays better under, right? Like we've seen a better striker manager duo, and obviously, but when you get Lukaku in Conte system, he just understands it. He got a goal, he got 2 assists, although his goal was pretty bad mistake on the goalie's fault for Cagliari. They just passed it to Cavada, who then sweated it in for an open net to Lukaku. But Lukaku had a great pass to Cavada for an assist. He is great at hold up play. He understands Calcio, and they played extremely well. I thought that Alex Moret made some fantastic saves. I know you were kind of questioning him going into the season. Can he do it? He saved them for Parma. He obviously didn't save them this game because they won 4-0, but he was making some great saves. And now they have those two midfielders that they can sub in who did make their debuts in Billy Gilmore and
Scott McTominay.
Scott McTominay, and then you have the one of, if not the best player in the league in Cavada, who can change the game in the snap of a finger. So they look great. I told you they're going to continue one game a week. They're going to get better. They're going to get better. They're going to get better, and they are going to be competing for this Scudetto for sure. They will be there at the end of the day.
To your point about how much it's kind of crazy that like how much it's showing through, how everybody's buying into this. When Lukaku scored, Cavada looked more excited than when he had scored. Like they all ran over to this was a 3-0 game when Lukaku put that in. It made it 3-0. Like this game was over. And everybody like piled in the corner. Everybody was jacked up, screaming. I'm not kidding. Cavada literally looked happier than when Lukaku scored than when he had scored. It was insane to see. I love Kvaratskhelia because he could just be a ball hog, and he's not. And a lot of players like that, I would kind of say he's like Leao in a lot of ways, but then he's a way more complete player than Leao. And I think that makes him even more exciting to watch because every game you don't phase this guy out of the game. You can't do it because he can just pop up in so many different areas on the field that even if he game plan, he's just going to move out of it and continue to go on.
Yeah, I also think he's much more of a team player than Leao, and I think the reason why is because of what team he plays for his national squad. A squad like Georgia, you're gonna have 30% possession, if that, and you have to strike on the counterattacks. And the few chances that you have, you need to capitalize because you're gonna be sitting deep and needing to be compact. And I think he's a captain of that team or one of the captains of that team, maybe the vice captain. Definitely the leader, definitely the best player. And so he knows that they're going to follow my lead. So I need to be the leader that shows I'm going to sacrifice for this team because it's what's needed for us to get results. Leao not really doesn't really do that. Doesn't really want to sacrifice. Wants to do what he wants to do. And you can see Cavada can buy in. And when you see Cavada buying in and Lukaku buying in and Zombo buying in and Labaka buying in, these guys that have won Scudettos, everybody else is going to fall into place. this is the results that you're going to get week in and week out are wins, and your squad's going to get excited and show the passion when they do score because everyone's buying in and they know what it means. I also think that Conte understands like Inter is a force, and if we're going to be there at the end of the season, we need to have a good goal differential. So you guys need to score as many goals as you can. So that's why I think even though they're up 2-0, they're still excited because they know these goals could play a factor later on down the road.
Yeah, but before we move on to Cagliari, this is just an interesting thought that I just had. Their front three right now, their best front three, probably arguably on the right side, you can make an argument, is Cavada, Lukaku, 100%. They've been playing Politano. In January, they're going to be selling Victor Osimhen. On the back of that sale, if they bring in a 40, 50 million euro right winger, this could be very interesting. And I don't think that's out of the question for something that could happen. They did bring in David Neres, but David Neres is a guy that can fill in off the left or off the right. I would like to see that happen. I think it could happen.
I think that would be tough just because there's no Champions League for them. So it would be a great luxury, but you'd have to convince that player who's worth 40, 50 to not play Champions League for the remainder of the season. So
Dennis
it's
Mann.
yeah, that could 100% happen. They could go get Dennis Mann for sure. That would be an upgrade. That's a great shout. That's a
That'd be an
fantastic shout.
interesting one. I think
That's
they
a
could get
fantastic
that
shout.
done. I think they could actually get that done if they wanted to.
100%, and I think that they wouldn't need to spend 40 million on him.
No,
I
they
think
definitely wouldn't,
like
now that I'm thinking
20
about
to
it.
30, and that's a fantastic shot right there. If they go get him, and Dennis Mann is going to be a hot commodity come January, without a doubt. So that would be an upgrade for him going to Napoli, and then obviously if they're in the top 4, he can then play Champions League next year. Great shout there.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to watch. Yeah, this team's just going to continue to get better for a Cagliari perspective. I think I'm the only person that's willing to defend them. I have watched probably too many Cagliari games this year. I can't escape them. And I do like what they're trying to achieve. And I think they are better than some of these results have shown. They have not had the easiest start to the season. They played Roma, they played Napoli, and they got something out of the Roma game. They did lose to Lecce, which was tough, in a game that we thought they maybe should have crawled their way back into, and then they drew Como. So I think at the bottom of the table here, I have more confidence in them to stay up than maybe the table is showing right now. I want to continue to shout out this guy, Zito Lavumbo. I am very impressed with him. He plays off the right a little bit. He plays through the middle a little bit, plays off the left a little bit. High energy, very athletic, very tricky, very direct. I think he's an interesting player to watch. And I will say Roberto Piccoli is a guy that has kind of bounced around a little bit, and I was out on him. I just thought he was kind of a shit player. He is doing a lot with a very tiny amount of service and creating not great chances, but creating something that makes me think that this team is going to be okay. And I think defensively, they've actually been pretty good. I don't think this game would have been 4-0. Napoli fucked. Napoli fucked. But they looked really good for like 60 minutes, but we're saying this against Napoli, who has one of the most, Mott says, one of the best teams in the league. They are looking that way. So I'm not going to close the book on Cagliari yet for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it said 4-0. Di Lorenzo's goal was a deflection. The goalie was going one way, and then it went the other way, and he couldn't save it. Cavada's goal was like a toe poke that the goalie should have saved. It was a bad no save. So, I mean, the XG on this game was 1.93 for Napoli, 1.0 for Calgary. I think that the game probably should have more accurately reflection would have been 2-0. The issue that I have with Calgary is that they play better against the better teams, and they don't play the same game against the worst teams. You got to beat Como, and you got to beat Lecce up a man. Like that's not going to get it done.
Yeah.
But like you said, they played Roma good, and I know this game says 4-0, but you take away 2 really, really bad mistakes from their goalie, and it's 2-0. And as I mentioned, Meret had great saves. Meret, just so you guys know, had an 8.0 for match rating, which is a great match rating. He's made a lot of clutch saves. So yes, it was 4-0, but that is a little bit of not an accurate reflection of what actually happened this game.
Definitely. But moving on to my boys in Bergamo, they hosted Fiorentina. This game went about as I had expected. I may have predicted 3-2 in this game. I know you said we didn't get it right, but I think I maybe did.
I think
And
you said 3-1.
this was a classic Atalanta game, just guns blazing, shootout, more of the same. From an Atalanta perspective, not much new. They looked very bad on the goals they let in. And then on the flip side of things, Retegui flying. The bigger story for me for this game is Lookman gets his first full 90 of the season, and he balled the fuck out. Goal, assist, was making things happen off the left nonstop. Played a beautiful ball into Retegui, who had another great finish. And for me now, Brescianini was a guy that had a great start to the season. In some of these games, it makes more sense to play Lookman. So I think they'll probably try to figure out a good rotation there and getting all three of them in. But right now, off the back of this game, Lookman actually looks insane. Like I knew he was always good and he's been good. And it's like off the back of last season where he really even hit another level. It looks like he's just going to continue that on. And adding that piece into this now makes his team even better from where I had already had them.
Yeah, Lookman balled out. I mean, even before that beautiful cross he played to Retegui, who had a great heading finish. He Africa'd the defender to get
Oh
around him,
yeah. Oh,
which in Africa is basically like you hit it into space and run around the guy and go get the ball. So Lookman, he did ball, no question about that. And you see why maybe he was ready to make a move to a different squad, but you also see why Atalanta was like, no, you're staying here because you're really, really good. And this front three between Lookman, CDK, and Retegui is going to be an absolute force. And not to mention they have Brescianini and Zaniolo to alternate to. So they have a great up top, which we all know. The issue with Atalanta is they're defending. They fell behind in this game, right? And they have to
twice.
come back. And their defense just is not there. Ederson is great. Like, he is a machine. He gets up and down the field. But other than that, they're really, really weak defensively. So you know that if you're going up against Atalanta, it's just try to not concede on them because you're going to score. But this is like you said, it's an Atalanta game to the T. That's their game plan. High press. We might let up goals, but we're going to score more. I just think that if they go up against stronger teams like Inter or in the Champions League or Juventus, they're going to not score enough or let up too many goals.
Yeah, and one thing I would like to see Gasperini make some adjustments, right? Like Atalanta has been around long enough and now their squad is good enough where maybe you can sacrifice a little bit offensively to get that solidity. Maybe it's not against the Colmos or the Fiorentinas, but I would like to see him say, we're not going to let one of these Inter results happen again where we just get battered for nothing. Because I think as a club and as a team, like there's guys that have been there long enough where, okay, let's adjust. Like, let's not just try to go shoot out with Inter and lose for nothing. Let's maybe make it like a 2-2 or like be a little bit more careful. Kusunu has not been implemented yet, which I am really surprised about because Atalanta center backs for me don't have a ton of instructions really, right? Like you're just playing center back and you got to run around a ton. And I don't really see how it can get worse, even if you threw in a guy that has no idea what he's doing.
Once again, why are you spending? That was one of the biggest buys of Atalanta's history. Like, I know it was a loan with obligation, but it had that 30 million price tag on it. Why are you not playing him? I get it. He's got to learn the system, but at the end of the day, put him at center back and it's just tell him go defend. Like, it's not that crazy of instructions to tell a center back to just play defense and defend, and then he'll learn the rest of it. But like, yeah, they scored 3 goals, but their XG was actually less than Fiorentina this game. CDK had a towering header. He got very high in the air. It was a great finish. Retegui's heading was a great finish. I thought Lookman's goal was kind of cheap, just because the goalie saw it late. But like, yes, you did win 3-2, but you didn't have that good of an XG, and your defense is there's such question marks on their defense that they got to figure it out.
They do. They do need to figure it out. And on a Fiorentina side of things, I think they're doing enough where I'm not worried about them. And like they're scoring goals. You have a hot striker now in Moise Kean. He scored again. And that's the kind of thing that'll just get you through the season. Like when you have a guy that's hot, but we keep saying his name and he needs to get some goals. Is Colpani. Like they brought him in. He needs to figure this out or
He
their
played
ceiling
better
is
though.
going. What was that?
He played a little better today or the other day, but he still didn't score. Here's the thing that I actually thought of when we were talking about Roma Genoa game, and I don't know if he's injured. I actually do not know. So I thought of this like literally 10 minutes ago, and I didn't do any research, obviously. Where the fuck is Goodmanson? They have him. Why is he not playing?
He's got to be hurt.
He must be. Like, why is he not playing?
I don't know. I genuinely don't
Because
know the answer to that.
he would have been or will be and is a player that will get you goals. So he must be hurt, but I don't see him in the injury reports for Fiorentina. But that's a guy that right there, if Kopani's not going to get you goals, he is definitely going to get you goals. You pair him with Moise Kean, who's on fire right now, you're going to be scoring goals.
Yeah. But they need to start getting some results now. They haven't.
They
They've got
do.
3 draws, a loss. Like we put them in a similar boat to Roma. I think there's a little bit less expectation on Fiorentina. I don't exactly know why, to be honest, probably because they spend less money. But this really isn't good enough for a team that sees themselves as getting deep in European competitions, getting into a European spot every year. And if you continue to let this go on another week, another 2 weeks, you're quickly kind of already out of the race then because of how good some other
Uphill
teams are going
battle.
to be. Yeah. And that is
Yeah.
very
I
hard to
mean,
do,
so
especially when maybe your confidence isn't there. There's a lot of issues with it.
yeah, and then it gets to a point where when does Palladino get on the hot seat? Kind of similar to De Rossi, new manager, plays a similar style to Italiano, so it shouldn't have taken that much integrating in terms of learning your system because it's pretty similar. But you got to get results because Italiano overachieved there. He was constantly in 7th place, constantly getting to European finals. You come in first 4 games and you're what I think their best result was a draw. That's not going to get it done for these Florence fans. You got to turn this around and kind of like the exact opposite of what we said with Udinese. This is now an uphill battle, and you can't afford to go in a mid-season run if that happens, or else you're really fucked.
Yeah, for sure. And I do remember what happened with Gudmundsson. He is on trial in Iceland.
For what?
Sexual misconduct.
Oh my god, jeez, that's bad.
Yeah, so not great. We'll give you guys an update when we hear anything.
Hopefully he comes back soon.
They gave him they have a protection clause in their purchase agreement. But
Okay, got it.
if he's innocent, big piece to the team, guilty, throw him wherever you're gonna throw him. I don't know what's gonna happen
Got it.
there. That wraps up Fiorentina Atalanta. We're not gonna do a ton on this next game, but we need to mention it. And as a AC Milan fan, they beat Venezia 4-0. I'm not crediting Fonseca with a tiny lick of this game at all. For me, this has not moved the needle at all. I think Logs would adamantly disagree with me on that. But this was a game, they beat Venezia 4-0, who are realistically going to be the punching bag of this league the entire season. I would be very
And
surprised.
at home.
And at home. 2 penalties. Teo Hernandez's goal was kind of bullshit. Fofana's goal was
Yeah.
kind of bullshit. It was a lot of very bad play from Venezia more than it was good play from Milan.
Milan.
They scored on another corner. Until I see passages of play that are happening continuously and you're defending against decent teams, we'll talk. We'll sit here and talk. This game I'm throwing out the window. Like, if you don't win this game, it's instantly sackable offense. You are now going to Liverpool, or they're at home, I think, against Liverpool. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But if you get a bad result here, and then you come back, and it doesn't get easier from there, right? Like they have Inter coming up. This is where the conversation is going to be. In 3 weeks' time now, after they played Liverpool, after they played Inter Milan, Fonseca might not be here still. This game, I literally don't care.
Yeah, this was, I mean, you had to get this win. If you didn't, like, as you mentioned, you're gone right away. But Listen, what I'll say, I agree with all the points that you made. Tio's goal was kind of bullshit. 2 penalties were definitely penalties. It was great to slot them away, but like not a goal from a passage of play. And then a corner kick as well is kind of not the best goal either. But what I will say, he did make one change that I saw and I think worked, and I think he needs to stick with it. He put Loftus-Cheek in the double pivot with Fofana, and he had Reinders playing higher up the pitch as a number 10, which I think they need to do. Loftus-Cheek can play the 10, but he's so good at getting the ball and kind of driving it forward. He can drive it, dribble it forward. Reinders isn't the best at that, and Reinders is better further up the pitch. Also, granted, I know it's Venezia, so they're not the best in possession. When you guys were out of possession, it was a 4-2-4, full press. We're going to get the ball back. Reinders was playing next to Tammy as a second striker with Leao and Pulisic on the wings, and it was Loftus-Cheek and Fofana in the midfield. I thought that was something different that we haven't seen so far. So at least he did a couple changes. Now we have to see what happens against Liverpool and Inter. Those are the real tests, because you needed to do that. You needed to do what you did against Venezia. You needed a win. You needed a convincing win, and they got that in a 4-0 style. Doesn't matter how they got it. It matters that they got it. Now let's see what happens with Inter and Liverpool. Let's see if he does the same thing with Reinders higher up, and if he implements that press out, that 4-2-4 when they're not in possession. These are going to be the two big tests, and I think if by no means is he not off the hot seat right now. If it doesn't go well against Liverpool or Inter, I think he can still easily be gone.
I think if they get schooled by Inter, regardless of what happens in the Liverpool game, he is gone. Like, because that's the derby, it's meaningful. We're far enough into the season now. That'll be your 6th game of the season. In that, like, if you lose that game in an embarrassing way, I think he has to be gone. I don't know who
Agreed.
necessarily you're bringing in, but like, and I know it's 6 games, but I don't see that he's up to this challenge. And I don't know why he was here in the first place is really what I keep coming back to.
That's
Just
what I agree
keep
with. I don't know
Pioli.
why you moved on to him. I agree. I know you guys weren't in love with Pioli. He was a good manager because he got a Scudetto. Fonseca's never proved anything. But we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Time
And
and
I
time.
guess on Wednesday, whenever we talked, well, I've seen the Liverpool game. And then we'll have a real conversation. Maybe Chiesa plays. That'd be great. I would love that. On a Venezia
We'll
side of
see.
things, it's still very bad. There's nothing good happening. You played decent against Torino. You're dead. You're going down.
Yeah, they're gonna have a tough season. I feel bad for Venezia. I feel bad for Champagne Poppy, but maybe now that with the backing of the Champagne Poppy money, they can get promoted after they get relegated this year. They can get promoted again next year, and then get players that will be able to help them stay up the next year. But they're probably going down.
Yeah, they're probably going down, but we're just going to run through the other score lines. Bologna went to Como, tied that game 2-2.
Illing
More
Jr. scored a
Italiano.
goal.
More
Illing Jr.
Italiano
scored at
here.
least in his debut. But yeah, I mean, if you're Bologna, if you want to do anything like you did last year, you needed a result against Como. You couldn't get it. We might have been dead wrong in our predictions that they're going to do it. And maybe Calafiori and Xerxes were way bigger pillars than we thought, and definitely Thiago Motta. But they even when they finally can score, they can't win. So
yeah, you can't be conceding two to Como. You can't be doing that. But I mean, this Italiano thing might just take a little bit more time than we had anticipated, because as we've said, there are some good things. It's just not all there yet, and it's kind of classic Italiano. From Como, still out on them. I don't really need to get into it. More interesting, Juve paid a visit to Empoli. This Empoli team might be the hardest team to beat in the league.
They are hard to break down. They are compact. They know how to defend. They can hit you on the counters. They're very good on the counters. They are going to be a tough out, especially when you go to their place at home, just because they're very compact. In terms of Juve side, more of the same of the Roma game. Juve they're still trying to figure it out offensively. Defensively, they figured it out. They are so compact. They're the one team in the 5 European leagues that has not let a goal in the first 4 matches. Gatti looks tremendous. Bremer looks like a beast. Kalulu played from the start, looked amazing off the right. So their defense is figured out. It's just going to be figuring out how to attack and get Vlahovic involved, who has not looked good in this modest system. We thought that was going to happen because he's such a different player than Xerxes. But as I mentioned with Roma, this is a new team, a lot of new players, a new manager, learning a new system. You are now seeing the growing pains. They came out firing 3-0, 3-0 in 2 games. This was going to happen, the growing pains, but at least they are sometimes getting the results that's where De Rossi's differing. He cannot get the results. Juve have gotten the results, and then some games you see the growing pains.
Yeah, and realistically, their big guys just got there, right? They didn't have a preseason. They've been there like 2 weeks, right? Like there is I see this is why I'm more positive about Juve than Roma. Like Roma have had most of their guys for a very long time, and you don't really see what they're trying to do offensively. Juve, you're clearly, and the quality of Juve is better right now. Very simply.
Agreed.
From Empoli, more of the same. They're going to be solid for the rest of the season. They're just very organized, very hard to play against. Not a lot new there. Lecce went to Torino, a Torino team that I am very hot on. I guess I'm going to continue to be hot on them. 0-0 draw. You got to beat Lecce, especially at home. This Torino offense now has been a little bit blunt over the last couple of weeks. They didn't look great against Venezia, although they had pulled out the result. 0-0 at Lecce is very bad, especially with how we have been hammering Lecce the whole season.
Dude, to take it even further than 0-0, Lecce 6 shots on goals, Torino 0. Lecce 20 shot attempts, Torino 5. They didn't even get a shot. They didn't have a good opportunity. And what we need to also start saying is Milinkovic-Savic now has saved Torino 3 games. He saved a win against Atalanta. He saved a win against Venezia, and now he saved a tie against Lecce. He has been their hero of the league of their season so far. Torino got to figure it out offensively if they want to keep these results going.
Vanoli, do not let me down. I'll send you a present. I need you to finish top 6 for me. Bringing it on to Monza, Inter Milan. Paid them a visit, 1-1. A little bit of a stumble for Inter, but I will say, you had said he should do it. He did do it. He very much rotated the squad.
Did not pay off rotating the squad. And that's what happens when you throw in the European League games in the midweek. You got to rotate, and it did not pay off. He had to throw on all of his starters late to get the equalizing goal. We thought this was going to be a walk in the park for Inter, no matter if it was a rotational game or the starting game. I think it was the right call to put your rotational players, especially because you got City soon, but did not work out. And this is a game for Inter. You have to win this game if you want to run away with the Scudetto again, which is why I don't think they're going to, because they didn't. And I think these results are going to continue. Good thing they got a point out of this, because it was looking late in this game that they were not going to get even a point from against this Monza team.
Yeah, and this Monza team is another one that just is trying to squeak out results. No wins yet. Three draws and a loss. So not a ton of interesting news there. The other game that happened today, which I had a horse in the race. I'm big on Verona this year. They went to Lazio. They did lose 2-1. This was an interesting game. I thought Verona played well, but I thought Lazio, in credit Baroni, I've been hammering him a little bit. They are becoming more creative. Tati Castellanos is flying. He's dragging his nuts across my face. I called him out. He's looking really good, and that makes a big difference. The other guy today that literally I had revelations of early Luka Modric was Nicola Ravella. I think he's finally becoming the player that we wanted him to be. The bad side of things, the goal that they conceded was terrible. The 2 center backs, Romagnoli, and I forget who the other starter was, just both ball washed and just stepped up and then just played the easiest ball straight down the middle, right through them. But as a team, I think this Lazio can continue to get better. It's something to grow on. I don't think this is the year where they're going to make any crazy headlines, but I do like a lot of the things that are going on there, and I have been pleasantly surprised from what I saw at the beginning of the season. I think Baroni has continued to make some changes, get a little bit more attacking, gotten away from that like 4-4-2 grind out results, and that's been good. For Verona now, couple of stumbles, still a good season. They're a team that I think just going to bring it to guys that are worse than them, and that's going to finish them higher than a lot of people.
Yeah, Verona's doing what you expect them to do, right? Beat Napoli. But like they're gonna lose some games. Lazio definitely proven me wrong. I think Lazio have like 6 players who are actually very solid in Tati Castellanos, Zacagna, um, Nuno, Rovella, and Guandisi, and then
Oh,
Daya. Those are
yeah, that's the other guy I wanted to shout out. He scored another good goal today. And having the two of them, I've been saying it actually the whole episode, how important it is to get strikers going and like guys that just go and win you the game. They have two now in Dia and
they
Castellanos.
do.
And that is very, very big.
And they have a very good playmaker off the left in Zacagna who got 2 assists this game. So they have a solid 6 players that are very solid. It's just everywhere else is where they might struggle. But Lazio look pretty good to start the season and are proving me wrong. Let's see if they continue doing that.
But that wraps up match week number 4, guys. We're gonna do a quick Champions League check in here. We got a bunch of games actually this week for Italian teams. Next week we got Europa League coming back, and then we got Conference League coming back on top of that. So there's gonna be a lot more to discuss. So on Wednesday we'll be kind of going over these games, what happened. We're giving you the previews of match week number 5. But to just go through the Champions League games, PSV is coming to Turin at the Allianz. Juventus return to the Champions League. Of all the teams in Italy, I think the Champions League is most meaningful for Juve. For whatever reason, they're the only team that are like the perennial Champions League guys. They haven't won one in a while, but I just associate them. And maybe this is because of our generation, because Inter Milan and AC Milan were like the big Champions League guys. But for me now, it's Juve because of what they are, what they represent as a global club.
Yeah, well, I also think that it's because Juve's made a push for that because they've had so much domestic success in Italy that they're like they shifted their sights to the Champions League and they couldn't get it done. Obviously, lost 2 finals in that 9-year reign, but now they're not having that success domestically, so they're kind of trying to do both at the same time. Obviously, last year had the point deduction, which was total bullshit. So they weren't in it this past season, but now they're back in it. New coach, new everything. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not too familiar with how PSV plays, so it will be interesting to see. But all I know is that Juventus has to get a goal this game or tomorrow. They've now gone 2 games without a goal, 2 games without really a real opportunity. You have to score. You got to get a result here. You're in Turin. You cannot drop the first Champions League game at home against, let's be frank, not the strongest opponent. Like Milan and Inter are playing harder opponents. We're going to talk about it soon. But if you're Juve, you got to get a result here. You got to win. You got to get a goal.
Definitely. And especially in the new format where you're going to play, every game is much more meaningful. You need to pick up points against these teams that are maybe worse. What I am a little bit worried about, Dutch teams tend to be very organized and very tricky to play against because it's like a proving ground in some way for a lot of managers. So there's a lot of tactical setups. And I don't think Juve have really dealt with that this year yet. And PSV tend to always just have good players, be a good team. This is a challenge. I think it's more of a challenge than some people are going to expect it to be. But I think a lot of these Juve players came to Juventus to play in the Champions
For
League.
this moment. Agreed, 100%. They want this. Yeah, and also so did Mata, and this is his first Champions League game. You're at home. You need to use the fans. You got to play the big signings. Coop Miners, Douglas Luiz from the start. Bremer needs to play from the start. Vlahovic, try to get him going from the start. You got to play the big guys. That's why 100%. That's why Mata came. That's why Coop Miners came. I don't know if that's why Douglas Luiz came, but he's still here. That's why Bremer's here. So play those guys, have them execute.
Definitely. Moving on to AC Milan, we just highlighted this a little bit. Liverpool is coming to Milan. I feel very bad about this game. I think they're going to get pulverized. I hate Luis Diaz and Andy Robertson attacking whoever we throw it on the right side. I don't have a lot of confidence that that's going to go well. And ultimately, this is just a team that's way worse than Liverpool. And I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, this is a tough game to feel good about. Luis Diaz might absolutely torch or Jota, or if they play Chiesa, whoever you guys play it right back. The one silver lining I'll say is that Emerson Royale just came from the Prem, So at least he's gone up against them before, kind of knows them. I don't think that that will help him in any way, shape, or form. Another silver lining is, or it could not be a silver lining, could mean Liverpool is even more motivated. They just came off a loss to Nottingham Forest at home. So maybe they are slightly weaker right now. You can expose them. You're also just coming off a 4-0 win in Milan. So you guys have high spirits. You can try to use that momentum. But all in all, I think Liverpool has adapted to slot ball much quicker than Milan has adapted to Fonseca's system, and I don't know how you're going to stop. Dennis Mann is good, but if you couldn't stop him, how are you going to stop Luis Diaz? And you couldn't stop Zakanya on the left.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
dead. You're literally dead.
yeah. But this is going to be
Here's a
sick though,
question.
because
Question for you though. Question for you before you highlight that.
my bad.
What is a good result for Milan here? Is it a result period, or is it not losing by a lot? Like, is that a good? If you lose this game 1-0 or 2-1,
Listen, that's a great question. Milan, they're not a bad team. They're playing bad, yes, but they've invested money. They finished second in the Scudetto last year. They finished 2 years ago in the semifinals of the Champions League. They're not looking at this, and you can't look at this as a Milan supporter or even someone in the club as we just need to lose but not embarrassing. You need to get a result.
That right there is my problem with Fonseca, because I don't think he's thinking that.
He better be. If he's not,
I don't think so. I think
he shouldn't be a
I
manager of
agree.
this team.
And I think he's stuck in the Roma 5 years ago, the Lille that he left, which is, as long as we compete, that's okay. Like, I
That's
think that's
terrible.
what he is.
That's awful.
And we're going to
I
see.
mean, listen, Liverpool is good. They're a good team, no question about it. They probably had more success over the last couple of years, but now that Klopp's gone, a lot of their team, Mane's gone, a lot of their team that they have that success with is gone. So I don't think that that you can think Liverpool is so much better than Milan. I think they're even teams, and a draw has to be like in the back of your mind is the worst case scenario, and you have to go in being like, we can win this game, especially because it's in the San Siro. But one thing I wanted to highlight, and then we'll move on to the next game, is this is a rematch of the 2005 and 2007 Champions League finals. Obviously, one of those games, I forgot which year it was. I think it was 2005. Milan was winning 2-0 or 3-0, and then Liverpool came back and won. And then 2 years later, Milan finally beat them, got that monkey off their back, and that was Pirlo's one and only Champions League final win. Thankfully, he was able to lift that trophy.
Two of the best AC Milan teams of all time, too. Some of the best players of all time played in those games. So that's probably one of the most famous finals. I think 2005 is the most famous final, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out Pot, Stevie G. He still sucks. Pirlo's better.
Another Champions League debut here for Bologna. This is a very bad first game, I will say. It could be worse. Yes, they could be playing like a major club. They're playing Shakhtar Donetsk, who is just a very horrible draw. These guys always show up in the Champions League, and I would not want to be playing them. I think they're going to be feeling kind of good, and that's going to work right into Shakhtar's hands. I don't think Bologna has hit a level yet where they're ready for this game. And I'm worried about them in the Champions League as a whole, because you can hold the ball a lot, but teams are going to counter you so hard and take care of business if you make any mistakes. And they're just not ready for that right now.
Yeah, listen, this is the Champions League for a reason. These players are of another level, even if they're on a team like Shakhtar. But Shakhtar has been around the block in the Champions League. This is Bologna's first time since I don't know how long in the Champions League. This is Italiano's first time in the Champions League. This is a lot of Bologna's players' first times in the Champions League, besides like 2 or 3 that are older. And listen, you're saying you're worried about them in the Champions League. We got to be worried about Bologna in the Serie A right now. They can't even figure it out domestically, let alone Europeanly. I'm scared for them. I don't see this going well at all, even though they're at home. I don't know. I don't see this season shaping up to be the best season at all for Bologna in Serie A or this Champions League. They could get embarrassed this game. I hope not, though.
I hope not. But that brings us on to another game, which is this is for me the Champions League game of the week. Inter Milan going to Manchester City. For me, Inter Milan have not been great in the league. And this is, you would think, bad time for this to happen. City is flying too, which doesn't help. But for me, Inzaghi, fire him up, dude. This is a Champions League final rematch. Fire everybody up. This is the game to kick on for the rest of the season. Get everybody in there. Get them fired up. Let's go. Let's go, Inzaghi. This is the time.
Listen, if City are playing well, but it's early on in the season. This obviously not going to win you the Champions League or lose you the Champions League. But you want to go in there, and City has been the Premier League been in this reign in the Premier League for the last 4 years. Inter gave them a run for their money in the Champions League final. As an Inter team, you've only improved since that game. You've gotten more continuity as well. You're more familiar with the system. You got Marcus Thuram. He's been in extremely good form. So this isn't, whether people want to admit it or not, this is going to be an evenly matched game. And as a Serie A fan, this is the games I want to see, and I want to see Inter take it to City and show everybody, like, dude, Inzaghi's calcio that he plays is beautiful, and it could be slightly better than Pep. And you got to, in order to do that, you need to take it to them and win or surprise them or draw. It's at City too, so get this. I always like to say this: punch them in the mouth early. They're not going to be expecting it. You're just as evenly matched as City. You can beat them. You can win this game. Go out and just play your soccer.
They can. They absolutely can. And I said this in the Atalanta game. Obviously, different opponent. But my point stands. City are a good matchup for Inter because of what City want to do. Inter are built to deal with that. They're fine playing. You can have the ball. Now we added Marcus Thuram, which is who we didn't have last time, and he's going to kill you when we counter. Like, they're there now. They didn't have that last time, and now they have that piece, and they're going to be fine absorbing the pressure. They've just continued to add the right guys. Dumfries is way better now than he was then. DeMarco, same thing. Hakan Çalhanoğlu they didn't have last time. They have Brozovic. Like, you just go through this, and this is a statement. This is a legacy game for Inzaghi right now. I know it's the first game of the Champions League season. This is the Champions League final replay that you guys lost. You got this. And I hope that they think they got this.
I hope so too. I'm excited. This game is on Wednesday. I don't know what time. I think it's at 3 on Wednesday. 100% game of the week. Tune in, and this I don't know. This will be a great game.
Yeah, in
I'm
the
excited.
last game, this is also one. This is going to be a sick game, I think.
And this game's on Thursday.
Arsenal coming to Bergamo. They're breaking in the new stadium with a Champions League opener. This is going to be a very entertaining game at the least. Arsenal are very good. I think Atalanta have no reason to think they can't win this game. I honestly think Atalanta have more than a good chance of winning. I think I'm going to throw money at Atalanta, honestly. They are built for this kind of stage. They want people that are better
for
than
European football. Exactly. Gasparini has more often than not had more success in the European competitions than in the Serie A. Obviously, he gets to the Coppa Italia final, but he doesn't really win the Serie A. Never's won the Serie A. His best finish was 2, and that was like 6 or 7 years ago at this point. But every year they're always going on deep runs in the European competitions, whether that's Champions League or Europa League, which they won last year. They've reloaded their squad now that Coop Miners is gone. They're ready. The only thing is where I get a little nervous is Arsenal's defense is so solid, one of the best defenses in the top 5 European leagues, and Atalanta's defense is very weak.
What did they do to Liverpool last year? Dismantled that defense.
They did do that, and they also dismantled an unbeaten Leverkusen as well. This is going to be a great game. This is why we love the Champions League, because you have these matchups like Inter versus City, Arsenal versus Atalanta. You have the best of the best of the best leagues, and it's just going to be a pleasure to watch. I'm excited. I'm pumped. Let's go.
The other thing I like about this game is Retegui, Champions League debut, Bellanova, Champions League debut, Ederson. I don't think he's ever played in the Champions League. Like, this is an exciting time, and I hope Retegui is announcing himself onto the stage here. Like, I'm here. Look, I'm real.
Lookman can also have the motivation of like, listen, I had a great Europa League. I can do it in the Champions League. This is going to be my season where I end up moving on from Atalanta. In order to do that, you need to go play these top level teams and ball against them. So it's gonna be a great game to watch. Arsenal, yeah, I mean, Arsenal are fully, or actually they're a bit knocked up right now in terms of injuries.
Hmm.
Odegaard got injured. There's a couple other Calafiori, obviously, although he hasn't really got too much burn yet. But they're not fully healthy, which is obviously not the best thing because you obviously want to play a team at their full health. But it could somewhat play the Atalanta's advantage. But we'll see how it plays out.
Definitely. But that wraps it up for us, guys. We're super excited about this week. We're hoping everybody from Serie A, the Calcio clubs, really step onto the scene here, pedal to the floor, start rolling over some of these teams in the quote unquote better leagues, because we all know that that's a load of bullshit at this point. And we are been here to cover it. Now they're going to show it to everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, you can follow us on all our socials at Calcio Culture FC. And we'll tune in on Wednesday. Motts, take us away.
We got a great week of football coming up. We got midweek games. We got great calcio on the weekend. It's going to be exciting. The season is about to be in full swing now that we have midweek games. Enjoy, sit back, relax, win some bets. We love you, Paisanos. Don't be a gagoots, and Forza Calcio Culture.